I will meet Cole.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Rhaenyra, and these are all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4. This episode was epic. The Dance of the Dragons has officially started. And speaking of dragons, I'm excited to show you guys this brand new parody shirt that we have at our merch store that shows a certain dragon rider faced with the decision: scout ahead for ships or forget about the Iron Fleet.
Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
We also have the twins pointing meme and the Team Black and Team Green baseball tees. You can find links for all of those below. Thank you for supporting our channel. So let's get started. This week we don't see anything new in the opening credits, so my guess is that they'll change the tapestry about every 2 weeks, and I just know the tapestry for episode 5 is going to be great. So this week's episode is written by Ryan Condal, one of the producers and writers for the show since season 1, and it is directed by the great Alan Taylor, who helmed the first episode of this season and also directed some great shows like Deadwood, Mad Men, and The Sopranos. We open on Daemon entering Dragonstone. Now from this angle, we see the face of one of the many king statues in the throne room. It's hard to tell from this angle, but my guess is that this is the King Viserys statue that we saw being built in the first episode this season. Now, this scene mirrors the first scene between Daemon and Rhaenyra in season 1. However, this time their places are switched. Rhaenyra is on the throne and in the position of power, while Daemon has to walk to her. It mirrors their current positions in life. Rhaenyra is the queen, while Daemon is only king consort. But this scene also reminds me of Daenerys' vision in season 2. In that vision, she walks into a throne room that is dark and empty as well. Remember, this vision was foreshadowing the ending of the show. The snow in the throne room represented Jon Snow and the ash that was falling amongst King's Landing. Now I bring this up because one of the gifts that some Targaryens have is second sight. Daenerys the Dreamer foresaw the doom of Valyria, and of course Helaena has visions that we've been talking about all throughout our coverage of the show. And of course, everything in the show hinges on the prophecy that Aegon saw in a dream. Two things to notice about Rhaenyra here. Firstly, her dress resembles the outfit that she wore to confront Otto in the season 1 finale. This could represent that, just like her father, Daemon never really stopped seeing Rhaenyra as a child. Even when she proclaimed herself as queen, he still saw a child arguing with Otto. Secondly, the crown is too big for her. Remember, Rhaenyra was about 14 when she was named Viserys' successor. The too large crown represents that she was really young to take on that responsibility. And of course, she only ever took on that responsibility because of Daemon's actions.
Styling him the heir for a day.
She says,
Stop.
Now this could be a reference to how he groomed her or how he forced Viserys to make her heir after he was callous about Balon's death. After he beheads her, she says, before Viserys had children with Alicent, Daemon would have been next in line for the throne if Rhaenyra had died. Now we know that Daemon wanted the throne all his life, so secretly he might have wanted Rhaenyra to die so it would pass to him. Currently, if Rhaenyra dies, he could probably argue that he should be crowned before Jace. Rhaenyra's severed head speaking to him could also imply that he feels guilty about Jaehaerys, especially since we saw Rhaenyra and Jaehaerys together in his last vision. But he's also beheaded another person in this throne room, or like, sort of beheaded them.
He can keep his tongue.
And then he wakes up.
So why does he have blood on his hands?
Well, it's probably not blood. When we last saw him, he was in a godswood touching a weirwood tree. Now, the crazy thing about weirwood trees is that they have red sap. In a godswood, there's almost always a heart tree with the face of a god carved into it, and occasionally it will look like it's crying because it is leaking sap. My guess is that Daemon touched the heart tree and got the sap on his hands. Lord Simon Strong mentions Rosby and Stokeworth castles. Now, these are both minor castles in the Crown Lands, so at this point, they think Sir Criston's campaign is headed toward Harrenhal, which is fair. They are getting closer, but they're also getting closer to Dragonstone. It's a great diversion. While they're worried about an assault on Harrenhal, they'll actually turn towards Rook Rest like we saw at the end of the episode. That way, they can stake their claim right across the water from Dragonstone. It's brilliant. Lord Strong also says,
both houses cited that sad business with the usurper's son in their declarations.
Remember how Rhaenyra said to Daemon,
"You have wounded me, weakened my claim to the throne, my ability to raise an army."
Now this is proof. Every single house has an easy reason to turn on her now. And then we see a black goat. Now in European mythology, black goats often represent witchcraft, demons, or Satan himself. This is because the Knights of Templar were accused of worshiping a satanic goat named Baphomet. Here it could represent the cursed nature of Harrenhal, or it could signal that there is a witch in their midst.
All right, everybody be cool. This is a robbery. Take all the money. Take person. I don't care. I don't want the person. I want his beard.
What?
I want his beard.
Oh my God, what are you wearing? Give me that!
Oh, I'm sorry. I only wanted to use your beard to cover my head because you see I'm bald.
Dude, you are not bald, you're just losing your hair. And if your hair is thinning, don't worry, you can actually do something about it with Keeps. They're the sponsor of this video. You will not believe how many guys start losing their hair, but then they put off doing something about it. Guys, I have been using Keeps for years, and if it weren't for Keeps, I would have lost my hair years ago.
Wow, you really use Keeps, huh?
Yes, I do, and what I like most about Keeps is that it's convenient and delivered straight to my front door, and I don't have to go through the hassle of making appointments and waiting in line in some office. I get a personalized plan from a licensed medical provider without leaving my home. I can even message that medical provider at any time via their secure messaging portal. Keeps offers both of the FDA-approved hair loss treatment options as well as a 2-in-1 treatment that combines both treatments. In fact, most Keeps customers see results within 6 months of starting their treatment. So guys, it is important to act fast, and I'm telling you, you have to start early and stick with it. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save. Keeps stopped my hair loss right in its tracks, and they have helped over 1 million men like us with only science-backed ingredients. That is why Keeps has more than 5,000 5-star reviews. So if you're noticing that you're losing your hair, don't ignore the problem or hope it goes away. Do something about it right now, because hair loss stops with Keeps. Thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring this video and for the free product. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/ScreenCrush or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/ScreenCrush. Now, back to what I was saying. And then we're introduced to Oscar Tully, the heir to Riverrun. Now, is it just me, or does it feel like Riverrun never has an able-bodied lord? In Game of Thrones, we see the exact same situation.
I could have that head on a spike by now. Instead, I have a mill.
His armor looks like the Blackfish's armor from Game of Thrones. That's right, they have not changed it up in 150 years. So even on his deathbed, Lord Grover Tully won't side with Rhaenyra for one simple reason: sexism. Fire and Blood says he had favored the rights of the male claimant in 101, and the years had not changed his views. But House Tully hasn't officially declared because, well, Grover's about to die.
Perhaps you might place a feather pillow over his head and speed along your inheritance.
We also see this gaggle of shaggy dogs that look like a fur rug. Now this really highlights the state the castle is in. Even things that look like luxuries are actually just animals. We cut to Driftmark where Rhaenys meets Alan. Now, in case it's not clear when she says this,
"But I was not told his savior was so comely."
she's not just saying that he's attractive. She's saying that he looks like Corlys and therefore is probably a bastard. Rhaenys really parallels Catelyn Stark here. She doesn't like bastards, maybe even hates them. Her husband's infidelity makes her angry, but she still acts honorably toward them.
Yeah, but didn't Cat pray for Jon to die?
Well, yeah, but then she made that little protection thing for him. Look, she came back around. Here, Rhaenys isn't thrilled about Corlys's bastard, but still thinks that he deserves honor.
He should be raised up and honored, not hidden beneath the tides.
We cut to Alicent holding a dragon from Viserys' old Valyria model, as she must have saved it from Aegon's wrath. And then she drops it, mirroring her dropping his model dragon in Season 1. However, in Season 1, she fixes it, symbolizing how she would fix the line of succession and give Viserys more dragon riders. This time, it remains broken, foreshadowing that dragon and dragon riders will die. The Grand Maester brings Alicent the abortion tea. Now, if you remember, Rhaenyra used this exact same tea in Season 1 after her tryst with Criston Cole, but Alicent also gave it to a girl that Aegon had sexually assaulted.
It's best to be certain.
Now she's using Aegon's past actions to cover for her own indiscretions.
I shall observe the girl closely.
And let's not forget that when Rhaenyra drank that moon tea, Alicent took it as proof of her own indiscretions with Daemon. And this was the beginning of the divide that would follow them into their adult lives that actually seeded the Dance of Dragons we're watching right now. So Alicent's actions here drinking moon tea are deeply hypocritical, and it shows how she started off very idealistic, trying to be pious, but now she's just looking out for herself and her own political power. This also mirrors the ending of last episode. Alicent truly believed that Viserys changed his mind at the last minute, but when Rhaenyra makes it clear that he did not change his mind, Alicent stands her ground and says the war is coming and neither of them can stop it. Alicent asks the Maester if he thought Viserys wanted Aegon a successor, to which he says,
"His Grace never raised the matter with me."
Now, let's be clear, that means he doesn't. Remember, most of the small council didn't care what Viserys wanted. They were going to install Aegon anyways.
Am I to understand that members of the small council have been planning secretly to install my son without me?
Alicent is the only person who's been holding on to this belief that Aegon is who Viserys truly wanted as heir. Even Otto doesn't believe his daughter.
He made me king.
Is that what you think?
And then Alicent drinks the tea, and notice there's a slight reluctance. George R. R. Martin has stated that the 7 gods are inspired by medieval Catholicism, and dating back to the 1st century writings, the Catholic Church believed that abortion and contraception were a crime. We saw her literally turn her back on the gods at the end of last episode, and now she's metaphorically turning her back on them as she commits yet another sin. We cut to the Black Council. Now, much like the Green Council at the beginning of this season, they're now infighting.
I believe.
She believes.
You should have burned them when you had the chance.
A lord says,
If I know the Riverlands, he has more disentangling ahead of him than the end of a Lycini orgy.
Now this is important. Even though the Riverlands are strategically placed and have good armies, they are not reliable, partially because they often have incompetent lords, like we saw with Daemon and future Lord Tully. Then Lord Corlys steps in.
My lord.
The only reason the lords submit to him is because he's a man. He isn't next in line for the throne. That's Jace. And he isn't Rhaenyra's most trusted advisor. That's Rhaenys. The only difference is that he is an adult man. Notice that Rhaenys says,
An end to this conflict.
She didn't say when. She's still trying to preserve peace, unlike everyone else on the council. We cut to another bloody scene. This is Duskendale, another kingdom in the Crownlands. On the shield, that's the crest of the Darklands, the Lords of Duskendale. We also see the Stokeworth crest and the Rosby crest, the 2 houses that Lord Strong said fell to Sir Criston. Also, this scene reminded me a lot of Daenerys.
You can earn back your honor by raising his banner and fighting in his name. All who refuse will have their death.
Bend the knee and join me, or refuse and die.
Bend the knee or die is always a cruel and maniacal way to go about war. Remember, Robb Stark kept tons of political prisoners because he refused to kill people who wouldn't side with him.
We've nowhere to keep all these prisoners. Barely enough food to feed our own.
We're not executing prisoners.
It was a logistical nightmare for him, but he managed because it was the honorable thing to do. Criston Cole wants to believe he's honorable and worthy of a white cloak, but this is inherently dishonorable. Lord Darkland calls Cole Kingmaker as an insult.
Kingmaker.
Wait, but wouldn't that be a good thing?
You would think.
Who's that?
That is Brianna. She's the living consciousness of a movie given sentience through some dark power that I cannot help to understand. But yeah, why is Kingmaker an insult?
Well, Game of Thrones has a habit of making complimentary names into insults. Think about Jaime Lannister. Like, Kingslayer sounds like a cool action hero name. You don't want to tussle with Kingslayer. But in reality, they call Jaime that because he stabbed the Mad King Aerys in the back. It was sarcastic, to point out his weakness and dishonor. Kingmaker sounds good, but in reality, it's highlighting Sir Criston Cole's betrayal. He's making a king instead of supporting the rightful queen. I mean, later the Greens say it as a good thing because, of course, they want Aegon to be king, but even then, the title undermines Aegon's authority and legitimacy. He shouldn't need to be made king. He should just be king.
Got it. Then Sir Criston says,
This is a better death than a traitor deserves.
Now this highlights how he still has to believe that he's in the right. He is not the traitor. It's everybody honoring their oath to Viserys. He's the good guy. This is also an interesting reversal of fantasy tropes. Normally, we expect the hero to be the knight in white, taking down the evil queen with the dragons and a castle. But here, the knight is the villain. We also see this later in the episode when Sir Criston gives his army a pep talk.
Your king has joined you! Hold to your courage! Hold to your wits!
We almost never see that kind of thing from the villain. But of course, Sir Criston doesn't think he's the villain. In his own mind, he's the hero. He also beheads Lord Darkland himself, which is the honorable way to execute somebody.
The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword.
He has to believe he's doing the right thing. Also, notice how Gawain Hightower talks down to him.
Realize you were neither born nor bred anywhere near the Crownlands, my good Lord Han. But Harrenhal is to the west.
Now, this is a sore spot for Cole. He did not come from a noble house and is desperate to be taken seriously. But he doesn't realize that no matter how many battles he wins, the upper class will always view him as inferior. So, ceremonial actions like executions or the cleanliness of his white cloak really matter to him. We go into the small council where Aegon is raging. Now, pay attention to this line from Larys.
It's like to drive Daemon to madness as he attempts to make use of it, which is beyond his faculties.
Last week, we talked a bit about the ghosts of Harrenhal. Basically, because so many people died there is a widespread belief that the castle is haunted. There's even a crazy rumor that Harren the Black put blood into the mortar. Because Daemon is temperamental, he's easy fodder for these ghosts. If you look at the partition next to Aegon, you can see that it's adorned with snakes, which symbolize how people in his own council are working behind his back.
How do you know this?
You sent word to me. The two of you have been plotting.
Aemon switches to Valyrian to say, and in case you were like me and you didn't know what a sobriquet meant, it is a nickname that each king gets. Aegon the Conqueror, Jaehaerys the Conciliator,
The Magnanimous.
Aemon switches to Valyrian specifically to humiliate Aegon because he can't really speak the language. Remember, it's not a language that's spoken much. It's pretty much dead outside of the highly learned and the Targaryen family, so the children have to learn it like a second language. We see Jaehaerys practicing it in Season 1.
Perhaps that's enough for this morning.
No, I want to keep going.
But because Aegon was never serious, and also he wasn't sure he would ever rule, he never bothered to actually learn it. Aemon is getting back at Aegon for humiliating him at the brothel, and honestly, for humiliating him his entire life. Aegon always thought it was fun to prank his brother, but never thought that Aemon could prank him. Now, when he's ruler, Aemon has the perfect chance to show his brother's weakness. So we cut to Alicent.
Yeah, why is she collecting rocks?
She left them by the fire to heat them, so she's making a medieval version of a hot water bottle. Honestly, it's kind of genius. But she isn't smart enough to put away her plan B tea, so maybe not that genius. Also, we get a lot of game metaphors in this conversation.
See it as a loss for a greater good.
Last week, I talked about how Rhaenys knew these men didn't grasp the gravity of war because they'd only ever played at combat in tourneys. Well, now we're seeing that firsthand.
Also, it's the Game of Thrones.
Yes, it is also the Game of Thrones.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
And then Alicent says,
He's covered himself in glory, to be sure.
Now, their flame fizzled pretty much immediately when Cole became Hand, and I wasn't sure if it was because Alicent felt betrayed that he replaced her father, or if she was angry that she no longer had more power than him. Here, it's pretty clear that it's the latter. Even though he is helping her son, she's not happy because every win he has strengthens his standing in the council and thus lowers hers. Now, Alicent is being way too transparent with Larys, and that's because she hasn't realized that he's now serving Aegon. She knows that he's the Master of Whispers, but she thinks that he's still loyal to her. Larys is using the emotional distance between her and her son to his advantage. Because Alicent and Aegon don't speak, she has no way to know that Larys is using her words as leverage. We also see that Alicent has done a complete 180 since her conversation with Rhaenyra. Until now, Viserys' final words were of huge importance to her, but now they mean nothing.
The significance of Viserys' intentions died with him.
It really just highlights how much of a hypocrite she is. We go back to creepy Harrenhal where Daemon has another vision. This time he sees Aemon, but when he turns around, he has his face. Aemon and Daemon are complete mirrors this season. They're both second sons who lust for power. They both accidentally killed a child. They're both eager to fight, and they both keep humiliating their leaders. But in case we didn't understand that they were mirrors, they really spelled it out for us right here. The single eye also reflects how both Aemon and Daemon are completely unbalanced. They can only see one point of view. For example, the family dinner. Aemon couldn't fathom letting the family heal and move on. In his head, Jace and Luke were bastards. That was wrong, and that was all there was to it. Daemon is the same way, and Harrenhal is a great example. He had a one-track mind and was set on the castle. He couldn't even listen to Rhaenyra's ideas. We officially meet Alice Rivers.
I'm called Alice.
Strong?
Rivers.
Bastard.
How did he know she was a bastard?
Well, in Westeros, every region has a specific last name given to bastards. So in the north, it's Snow, and in Dorne, it's Sand, and in the Riverlands, it's Rivers. Her appearance really surprised me. In the books, she is described as very, very old, just like Melisandre. But in both cases, men retroactively assigned them creepy features after they heard that they were witches. Alice says,
Black hadn't felled the grove of weirwood trees that grew on these lands.
Thus far in House of Dragons, we focused on the Seven because that's the main religion and the religion that the Hightowers follow. But there is an older religion known simply as the Old Gods. The Old Gods are nature gods that have a specific connection with the weirwood trees that I mentioned earlier. In Game of Thrones, we see that almost every major house has a godswood, and in the center of the godswood is a heart tree that is a weirwood tree with the face of an old god carved into it. It's believed that people can actually speak to those gods through these trees. So, felling an entire grove of trees to build a castle would be an utmost insult to the old gods. Weirwoods actually used to cover all of Westeros during the time of the Children of the Forest and during the First Men. But when the Andals came, they brought the faith of the Seven. They slaughtered the Children of the Forest and cut down nearly all the weirwoods in the south. And this actually led to the creation of the original Night King. While they were at war with men, the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers as a weapon, and of course, it totally backfired. Weirwood trees also store the past, present, and future because they're part of the gods. Now we see this when Bran touches the heart tree in Game of Thrones. Thrones. So Daemon sleeping in a weirwood bed would give him these visions that mix the past and present and future. Then Daemon blacks out and he wakes up talking to Lord Bracken. So this is the same lord who killed a Blackwood during Rhaenyra's marriage tour. Of course, back then he was a lot smaller. Also, notice that Daemon's chair is broken, further highlighting that this is a decrepit castle. Then Daemon sees Laena. Just like Rhaenyra, he feels guilt over Laena. He wouldn't agree to go back to Driftmark, and then she died in childbirth and Pentos. Not only was she away from her family, but there's no way to know if the maesters of Driftmark could have saved her life. It's like Harrenhal is using his own guilt and shortcomings to torture him. We cut back to the Red Keep. Now notice the cupbearer has to refill Aegon's cup, but Larys says no more. Aegon's literally the only one getting drunk at his own council. Also notice that Alicent isn't there. In the next scene, we find out that she was in Aegon's room. Now I'm wondering if she excused herself from the small council once Larys found out about the tea. Back in his room, Alicent says,
In the hope that you might be half the king your father was.
Now, one thing I want to point out is that Aegon is so petulant and bad at ruling because he was never trained to be king. Viserys said Rhaenyra was his heir, and therefore all of his attention went to her. She was always in council meetings. When she was younger, she was a cupbearer, and when she was older, she had her own seat. Aegon never had any exposure to power. Now because of this, he still behaves like a little kid. Even the way he's sitting is childish. It's exactly how Captain America sits when he's trying to be relatable and hip in Spider-Man Homecoming.
So, you got detention.
To be fair, Alicent didn't help him. She told him when he was a teenager that he would become king.
You're the king's firstborn son. One day you will be our king.
But it never seemed like she actually tried to counsel him or give him the skills necessary to be king, probably because she thought it wasn't important. In her mind, it would always be her and Otto who were ruling the kingdom. We go to Criston Cole's campaign. Now, I'm honestly not sure if he was drinking liquor or water here. I'm tempted to say liquor just because this is such an insanely hubristic plan.
We shall move now and strike by day. They will not expect it.
Just to orient everybody, Rook's Rest is right across the sea from Dragonstone. Harrenhal, on the other hand, is right in the center of Westeros. So right now, the Greens are attacking here, and they have Vhagar. Syrax, Arax, Moondancer, and Meleys are here on Dragonstone. Sunfire is in the Red Keep, and Caraxes is in Harrenhal. Back at Rhaenyra's council, she says,
I inherited 80 years of peace from my father.
I want to highlight that because it's so different from how the Greens are looking at the war. Members of the Greens claim love for Viserys, but don't actually want to honor him. In fact, they only mention their fondness in regards to Aegon. But Rhaenyra truly loved her father. She wants to protect and honor his legacy, and one way to do that is to keep the peace. Even her resistance to war is a sign of respect for her dad. And then she says,
either I win my claim or die.
Which of course echoes the famous line from Game of Thrones.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
In private, she tells Jacaerys about the Song of Ice and Fire, and notice she is in front of this giant dragon head. This can't be Balerion's skull because his skull is in King's Landing. We saw it when Rhaenyra was a child, and again when Rhaenys escaped the castle. I think this is actually the skull of Meraxes, the dragon of the original Rhaenys Targaryen. They died together when they fell from the sky in Dorne, and it is perfect foreshadowing to see Meraxes' skull here when Rhaenys Velaryon is about to suffer the same fate as Rhaenys Targaryen.
And they all seem to have the same name.
Back in King's Landing, Aegon is drunk by himself.
Not a good look.
Not at all. And notice that he knocks his dragon decanter over, foreshadowing how he and Sunfire are about to fall in battle. Both teams suit up for battle. It was so mean of the creators to give us these sweet shots of them cuddling and nuzzling their dragon. That just, why? It's already sad. Why make it worse? Why hurt us like this?
Are you okay there, person?
I'm fine. I just don't take dragon death well, which is why we mock dragon death in our new shirt at our merch store. Rhaenys says to Jace,
the horrors I have just loosed cannot be for a crown alone.
Now the show is really painting the Greens as the bad guys. Rhaenyra's justification is that she is fighting for the fate of the world. If she truly believes the Song of Ice and Fire, then she is trying to save all of Westeros. But the Greens are just fighting so a drunk kid can stay in power. We cut to Aegon on Dragonback. Now notice how shaky this shot is. We have seen tons of dragon riding thus far, and we usually get very smooth shots, almost like the dragons are just gliding. But here, the camera is swaying. It's not because the ride is rockier, it's because Aegon is so drunk that he has the spins. Now, I love how they camouflage Vhagar and Aemon. I was wondering why we weren't seeing them and they just went full guerrilla warfare. It's brilliant. Also, Aemon speaks to Vhagar in Valyrian.
On boss, Vhagar.
Sir Daor.
That is the best language to command dragons because of ancestral Valyrian blood magic, but Aegon speaks to Sunfire in the King's English.
Forward, Sunfire!
So I kind of wonder how much control he ever even had over him. When Aegon attacks Rhaenys, he says Dracarys. Now, fire can do a lot of damage. We see that later in the episode, but it has to be very close and very big. If not, fireballs are kind of harmless. In fact, we even saw Laena have Vhagar launch a fireball at Daemon for fun. It was a cute little moment, and this shows just how little Aegon actually knows about battle, specifically with other dragons. It's also the command they use for party tricks in Season 1.
Can I say it? Dracarys Vermax.
It highlights that Aegon is just a kid playing at war. He's never actually been in battle. But Rhaenys has actually been in combat. When she says attack, we get this. Also, you may have noticed that, like Aegon, the wounds are steaming. Dragon blood is boiling hot, so even their wounds can cause friendly fire, like we saw here. This isn't the first time we've seen something like this happen. We saw Caraxes step on a Westerosi man in the Battle of the Stepstones, and this is fitting. The characters talk about dragons like they're nukes, and nukes are not precise. They just knock out everything. Dragons are kind of similar. They won't attack their own side, but they're liable to accidentally hurt them because they're just so big and so dangerous. And then in comes Sky Godzilla, aka Vhagar. So I'm going to be honest, I never actually understood just how Vhagar was until this scene. Seeing him fly across the sky with just the noise of his growl sent shivers up my spine. When Aemon does this, he definitely meant to hurt his brother. Unlike Aegon, Aemon is very trained in battle. He knows how to use Dracarys. And I think the fact that Meleys and Rhaenys were relatively unscathed by this attack just proves that he wanted to kill his brother. And then Rhaenys comes back with Meleys.
Did she think that she could beat Vhagar?
I don't think so. Vhagar is massive and really old. I think she wanted to wound him. He's so big it would be really hard for any one dragon to take Vhagar from 100% to dead. But she knew that Meleys could hurt him and make it easier for another Team Black dragon to finish him off. I also love seeing the harnesses and saddles they have for their dragons. It shows that the Targaryens were really at a high point. Daenerys pretty much only rides her dragons bareback. She didn't have the knowledge or monetary resources to make anything fancy like this saddle. But at this point in their reign, the Targaryens have enough wealth to deck their dragons out. One of the advantages small dragons have against Vhagar is that they're much more maneuverable. Vhagar is very cumbersome. A smaller dragon can do a lot of damage if they can get to Vhagar's soft belly, like Meleys does. Also, when you see them fighting from the ground, it makes total sense why everybody says the Targaryens are closer to gods than men. After Vhagar falls to the ground, we get a slow-mo battle shot, and I just want to highlight that this is all friendly fire. Rhaenyra had no army in this fight, so Vhagar is stepping over Team Green's own men.
Friendly fire!
And then we see this body that is curled up and burned. In the book, that's how Rhaenys' body is found. And then Vhagar swoops in and kills Meleys. Now, the way Rhaenys and Meleys fall is very symbolic because it's the exact same type of fall that killed the original Rhaenys Targaryen. Fire and Blood says Meraxes came crashing to earth in mortal agony, destroying the tower and a large section of the Hellholt's curtain wall in her death throes. Some say Rhaenys lost her seat and fell to her death. Others say that she was crushed beneath Meraxes in the castle yard. For Aegon, Rhaenys Targaryen was his favorite wife. Her death sparked a brutal war against Dorne, and Rhaenyra clearly looked up to Rhaenys and valued her opinion. So I think this is going to set off a brutal attack from Team Black. Also, look how much Aemon has changed. The first time he killed another dragon, he was horrified, but now he's proud. Cole wakes up and goes to a fellow soldier who disintegrates into ash. Now, they've drawn a lot of parallels between dragons and nukes, so I wonder if this is a reference to the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki who died so quickly they only left shadows. I think there's also symbolism here with Westeros itself. When dragons fight one another, the continent still remains, but everybody inside of it burns. Aemon finds Aegon and takes the notorious Cat's Paw dagger. Now, last season we saw the dagger contain part of the prophecy. It's also a major deal in Game of Thrones, but we're going to explain that more in a video tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. I also love that we'll never know if Aemon was going to kill Aegon. Maybe, maybe not. The show has done some interesting things with rumors where even we can't be sure what's happened. For example, we never actually see Daemon say Balon is king for a day. We only hear about it after the fact. And similarly, I doubt if we'll ever know exactly what Aemon was thinking. Also, did this remind anyone else of the Emperor finding Darth Vader?
He's still alive.
The lesson here is, kids, don't drink and fly. Your dragon could pay the price. What a great episode. It was the first time we've seen dragons fight, and I don't know if I'm looking forward to seeing that more or if I'm scared to.
Hey, I just want to say thanks for the keeps. I got to keep my hair.
And just a reminder to stop your hair loss today, click our link in the description for a special offer from Keeps. Well guys, that's everything that we caught, but did we miss anything? What did you think? Let us know down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And big shout out to the writer of this video, Brianna McLarty. You can find her social links below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Rhaenyra.